Any system that has an input and in return it gives us the output works like a function. Suppose you have a blender machine that can make juice for you. If you give your blender machine a mango as input, it will give you a mango juice as output. Here, the blender machine is the function that is producing different types of juices as output. Functions are blocks of code that perform specific tasks. They sit in the background until called upon. Consider them like employees. You can keep them all at the office, but unless you call them up to do their job, they remain inactive. It's for this reason that programmers, those hardworking people behind the scenes, have to create functions and then call them up when required. So far, you have learned how to use built-in functions in PHP, such as var dump that prints information about a variable. We know that functions are usable pieces of code, but how can you define a function in a code so that you call it whenever required? Following is the syntax to be define a function in PHP. Points to be noted from the syntax. PHP uses the function keyword to tell the language a function is about to be defined. Functions in PHP are names with underscores instead of empty spaces followed by parentheses to hold any input values. The content of a function in PHP are marked off by curly braces. Let's go through a basic example to understand the definition and calling of a function. If you have followed the syntax of defining a function, the first line of code is under your belt. So here, we have created a function called myMessage. By defining the function, PHP code will have to execute. We set it to output text saying, "Welcome to Programming Hub," after being called. This is the effect of functions, called whenever in need, acts like your body. Functions are one of the most powerful, versatile elements of PHP. While you have already used them in some ways, you can tweak them to do so much more. Functions can accept input from the user, perform several calculations with it, and even create their own output or outputs based on what type of function they are. Well, let's explore more. One of the most common mistakes developers make is to confuse parameters with arguments. They are two separate concepts, although they are both important parts of functions. So what's the difference? A parameter is the variable listed inside a parenthesis in the function definition, while an argument is a value that is sent to the function when it is called. In order To add extra functionality, let's bring the focus on parameters. A function may have zero or more parameters. To add one or more parameters to a function, you can use the following syntax. A parameter appears with the parentheses and looks just like a normal PHP variable. Let's create a new function that creates a custom greeting based on the person's name. Our parameter will be the person's name and our function will concatenate this name into a greeting string. Here's what the code snippet would look like. When you add parameters, you also add more responsibility to you, the programmer. Let's call our new function a few times with some common first names. When we use the migrating function, we have to set it a string containing someone's name, otherwise it will break. Sometimes function arguments play an important role in the function code execution. In such cases, if a user forgets to provide the argument while calling the function, it might lead to some error. To avoid such errors, you can provide a default value for the arguments, which is used when no value is provided for the argument when the function is called. Let's understand it better through an example. So, when you forget to provide an argument while calling the function to cover up, you can set default values to the arguments to your functions. Besides being able to pass functions information, you can also have them return a value. However, a function can only return one thing, although that thing can be any integer, float, array, string, etc. The choice is all yours. How does it return a value though? Well, when the function is used and finishes executing, it sort of changes from being a function name into being a value. To capture this value, you can set a variable equal to the function. Something like my var. Let's demonstrate this returning of a value by using a simple function that returns the sum of two integers. When we set my rank equal to the function my sum, my rank is set equal to the result of my sum. In this case, the result was 50 plus 50 equals 100, and 1 plus 0 equals 1, which was successfully stored into my rank and displayed in the echo statement respectively. Look how good it feels to return something. Imagine you had to pass data from one function to another. How would you do that? In this situation, pass by value and pass by reference come in handy. Let's consider a scenario for pass by value. Suppose your friend has an external hard disk full of movies. One day you borrow the hard disk and copy all the movies into your computer. After some days, your brother came and deleted the movies or say he made many changes in the folder containing movies. But the changes made in movies on your desktop do not affect the movies on your friend's hard disk. In PHP, some scenario occurs in a pass-by value. Now, let's consider a scenario for pass-by reference. Suppose when you and your colleague are writing the project report on Google Docs by sharing same files, where you can see the changes made by one user can also be visible to the other users. That is, when you are writing, the same content is appearing in other users, and if others made changes in your content, then also you can see it. In summary, when you share a file in Google Docs, changes made in one file by one user also affect the changes in other files of other users. In PHP, the same scenario occurs in pass-by references. Passing by value means that the value of the function parameter is copied into another location of your memory. Suppose when you want to access or modify the variable within your function, only the copy is accessed. Modified and the original value is left untouched. By default, arguments are passed by values in PHP. Well, let's bring the camera to focus on an example to understand in a single take. From the code, First, define the my number variable to initialize its value to 5. Second, define the improve function that increases the argument by 1 and displays it. Third, call the improve function and pass the my number variable into the function. Finally, display the my number variable. When you pass the my number variable to improve function, the function increases its value by 1. Therefore, when you display the value of the my number inside the function, you'll get 2. However, after the function call, the value of the counter is still 1. It means that the improve function doesn't increase the my number variable outside the function. What happens is that when you pass the my number to the improve function, the function copies the my number variable and modifies the copy. It doesn't change the original variable. The my number variable doesn't change. When the value of an argument within the function is changed and doesn't get changed outside of the function, it is passed by value. If you want a function to change its arguments, you need to pass the arguments by reference. Passing an argument by reference is done by appending an ampersand to the parameter name in the function definition. As shown in the example below, here you can notice the change of my number variable reflects both inside and outside of the function. An ampersand is enough to change the whole game.